if there's one thing that's unique about AHVAP is we will treat you as part of a family. You will not be a member, you will not be a number, you will not be a statistic. You will be truly a part of our family. And when one member of our family hurts, we all hurt, and we all rise to the occasion to support that family member. We work very hard to make sure that, especially as we grow larger and larger, that we don't lose that sentimental feeling, because healthcare desperately needs that supportive infrastructure. And healthcare value analysis is really the backbone of delivering high quality care. And so this provides us that unique opportunity to deliver for that.
This is Associations Thrive, the podcast celebrating successful associations and their leaders. I'm your host, Joanna Pineda, CEO and Chief Troublemaker at Matrix Group International. Listen in as top association executives tell all, revealing the creative and innovative ways they're increasing membership, generating revenue, nurturing engagement, and reimagining their organizations. By the way, if you've launched a new initiative, created new member services, or updated your governance structure and are seeing great results, I want to hear your story, and so do my listeners. I'd love to have you as a guest. Go to podcast.matrixgroup.net and apply to be on Associations Thrive. Now let's dive into this week's show. Today's a special episode because I've got two guests. I'm speaking with Dr. Hudson Garrett and Karen Niven. Dr. Hudson Garrett is Executive Director and Executive Vice President, and Karen Niven is President of the Board of the Association of Healthcare Value Analysis Professionals, or AHVAP. Hudson and Karen, welcome to the show.
Thanks so much.
Hudson, I had you on a few weeks ago to talk about AHVAP, and for the folks who didn't get a chance to hear that episode, tell us who AHVAP is and what's a healthcare value analysis professional.
Yeah, so AHVAP is an association that really is a matrix point for many different healthcare professionals that come together to deliver the highest quality value to our patients. And so AHVAP itself is really built around improving clinical outcomes, improving population health, really improving the overall patient experience, but taking preventable costs out of the system and making care affordable and available to all. And so we really have centered ourselves around the Institute for Healthcare Improvement quadruple aim, and really the quintuple aim at this point, in order to make sure that care is available. So our members hail from all different types of professional disciplines: nursing, physicians, pharmacists, nurse practitioners, providers, industry partners, laboratory technologists, and other supply chain professionals. And that really brings a unique level of diversity to our membership, but also to our specialty that's necessary to deliver upon our promise to our patients.
Amazing. And Hudson, when we talked a few weeks ago, there was so much that we had to discuss, including your Future Summit. And I said, oh my God, I got to have you back. And you said, well, if we're going to talk about the Future Summit and governance, we have to bring Karen on. So Karen, tell us about your background. Are you a healthcare value analysis professional?
I absolutely am. I have finally found my people, and my people are healthcare value analysis professionals. My career is, I have a clinical background. I'm a nurse by training. I spent over 30 years in a large integrated delivery network here in Charlotte, where I went from the bedside to the leader of a very large service line. And after that career there, I joined the company that I work for now, which is a GPO. But the career that I had clinically really helped me prepare for the career that I have now. And during that journey is where I found the value analysis and the value analysis principles and practice. When I started managing ORs back in my day, the first thing that I did was I became very good friends with infection prevention and risk management and sterile processing and anesthesia, so that I could have all the groups that interacted with the OR. And it proved very well for me to have that lens from them, because only then do you make the best decision for the patients and the organization. And it really does now, I know, stem around the value analysis process and practices.
Well, Karen, let me ask you a question, because every association needs good leaders, right, in order to function, in order to thrive. It takes a different kind of person to raise their hand and say, I'm going to give you my time and my energy, and you're not going to pay me a thing, and I'm going to be involved in this organization. So why did you decide to become involved in AHVAP?
I decided to become an AVAP because professional growth and development is part of my DNA. I have always wanted to be part of what made an organization better, what made the delivery of care better for a patient population. I have always believed in that paying it forward, if you will, because one of my close friends really, and she worked in healthcare, and her mantra was, we have to work constantly to leave healthcare better than we found it. When I started in the PACU, the head nurse that I worked for, she was very intentional about the training. And one of the things that she trained me on was you always leave your space in the PACU ready to accept the next patient. Clean suction, all those things. And she was teaching me that lesson, that you leave it better than you found it. So it's always been part of my DNA to be able to do that. I'm a firm believer in continuing to grow and develop. I didn't go to graduate school until my youngest was in college. And one of the classes that I had was around asking why. And I thought, this is going to be boring. But it turned out to be great because it really helped me determine, you just ask why so that you can work on those set of circumstances till you can't ask why anymore. And it really turned out to be one of the best classes that I ever had. Hence why almost 25 years from now, I can still remember that class. Don't remember many of the others, but that class had a really big impression on me with regards to leaving things better than I found them.
Hudson, I'm always really impressed with these board and committee members who devote so much of their time and their hearts to these organizations. I mean, you said to me during the prep that you've called Karen 7 times today. Talk to me a little bit about how to foster good relations between the chief staff exec and the board. Because I'll tell you, it comes up all the time on this podcast that my guests say, man, we wouldn't be here if we didn't have a great relationship with our board, that it's so critical. So how do you make that happen?
I mean, I think first and foremost, Karen and I have fundamental respect for each other on a professional and a personal level. And I think when you have that underlying current, it allows for many positive things to take place. We've had the opportunity to work together on a variety of different projects, even outside of AHVAP, for almost 15 years or so. And so we've got a good working relationship with each other. But I think the most important thing beyond that underlying trust is also the dedication towards a shared goal. In healthcare, we call that the shared mental model. We're both here to do one simple thing, which is to advance our specialty, take care of our members, and at the end of the day, take care of the patient. And so I think that that's really the North Star for both our organization, but also for Karen and I personally. When Karen says she works for the patient, she truly means that. That's not a joke. That's not being facetious. That's very, very serious to her. The same is true for us and for many of our members. And while our AHVAP members hail from both clinical and non-clinical perspectives, they are all supporting the patient. And I go back to the fundamental piece of, if you're admitted to a hospital, there's a few functions that touch almost every single patient. Certainly one is nursing, because you will always be touched by a nurse. Environmental services is going to keep your room clean. Dietary is going to feed you 3 times a day. But value analysis is sort of the one that's behind the curtain. Because every single product that's used to care for our patients in some aspect has gone through a healthcare value analysis process that's led by individuals that are part of AHVAP. And that's a really unique perspective because our ability to advance evidence-based care, do it in a way that's going to provide for highly reliable organizations and patient safety, and hopefully do it at the lowest possible cost so we can reinvest that cost savings in other clinically relevant initiatives. That's a powerful place for us to be because we all know that healthcare is broken. The difference is what we are trying to do at AHVAP and what Karen as a board president and myself are trying to do is to make sure we can fix it from the inside, because we don't need an outsider to fix healthcare. We need the folks that are deeply entrenched, that are dedicated and want to fix it from the inside. And we have to listen to our stakeholders because where the work is performed is where our solutions will be found. And so at AHVAP, we really fundamentally believe in listening to our members, trying to help them with things like we did this week with our blood culture webinar that we put together in a matter of hours because it was desperately needed for our industry.
Well, Hudson, let's turn to the Future Summit, because if you're saying that healthcare is broken, what does the future look like and how are you adapting? Talk to us about the summit. First of all, why do a Future Summit and what does it look like?
Well, I mean, first and foremost, it's important, I think, for any nonprofit association to always be forward thinking, especially in the healthcare space. And so Karen and I are not complacent by any means. And we built a robust strategic 5-year plan for the association. And that was with tremendous input from our board of directors. We got some of the most stellar conversation going during that strategic planning process that we held. And so major kudos to our board for that. That next step or evolution or iteration for Karen specifically was she said, Hudson, I would really love to be able to do something where we can almost cast a crystal ball for our specialty. It's not even about AHVAP at this point. It's more of where is sort of the relevance and the need of healthcare value analysis in being a part of the solutions that healthcare can deliver for our patients. Because costs are astronomical. You've got care delivery challenges. You have staffing challenges. There's not a lot of positive stuff coming out of healthcare. But what we've decided to do is take that glass half full approach and say, let's convene all of the stakeholders necessary to have a good dinner table conversation. And so we convened organizations like hospitals, and we convened 2 different adult hospitals and a pediatric center, because our pediatric membership has grown exponentially. We wanted people that were from smaller hospitals and folks from larger integrated delivery networks. And so we got one of the top 5 IDNs or integrated delivery networks from the country to come. We needed to have industry partners there because the lens that they have is really unique, and they're also responsible for bringing clinical innovation in terms of our products. But there's different levels of industry partners. There's those that actually physically make those devices and products, or manufacturers. There's our distribution partners as well. So we brought both. And then lastly, we said, well, we need to look a little bit deeper and say, how do we memorialize some of our learnings? And so we reached out to an academic partner from a medical school and said, talk to us about how we can demonstrate research capabilities and sort of research priorities and document this in the peer-reviewed literature. And lastly, we went to our biggest external clinical partner, which was ARN, and really tremendous respect for Dr. Lisa Spruce from ARN, who's not only a clinical leader and steward in her field of perioperative nursing, but she also is just a wonderful person to partner with. And so we wanted to have that perspective too, to make sure that we were looking amongst our clinical specialty partners too. And so that's really what was the basis for the futures conversation. It was an open-ended conversation with sort of a structured agenda, but it really facilitated, I think Karen would agree, some tremendous outputs and conversations around what we could do together. And I know that all the stakeholders left, and so they felt excited about the future of healthcare and what we could do to be a part of it.
Well, let me ask you a question, since my listeners are association executives who are always looking at their programming, their services, their events. So what did it look like, and how do you facilitate a conversation about the future? Was it presentation of research and then conversations? Was it a futurist? So talk to us about the program, or just how it was structured.
Yeah, so we purposely tried to make it as informal as possible. So while there were certain topical areas that were facilitated by different attendees, so, for example, we had somebody that, facilitated the industry stakeholder conversation, somebody who facilitated the research. So each person was asked to essentially chip in. And they did a short 10 to 15 minute sort of overview of that particular topical area and some ideas. And we had generated some questions to really sort of open the Pandora's box, if you will, of conversation. And that worked extremely effectively because everyone's voice was heard, all the lenses were addressed, the different perspectives were incorporated into what we're producing right now as our outputs. But it also ensured that when we look at healthcare as this complex jigsaw puzzle, if you will, we're able to bring all the pieces. And I think that that's an important role for us as an association is maybe we don't have every piece internally, but ARN, some of our external partners, have pieces that we don't necessarily have. And frankly, we don't want to own. We want to bring in the experts of those particular areas. And so that was another approach that we took too, was to bring in areas where we might not have the necessary requisite strength. Why not go out and just partner with the folks that do and bring them into our tent and bring them into our dinner table? And that's really what the futures conversation was all about.
Now, you spoke of outputs. this event was probably very meaningful for the people who attended, but it sounds like you're going to have some output so that the wider community will be able to take advantage of what happened at the Future Summit. So what do these outputs look like?
Absolutely. So first and foremost, we're going to be releasing our proceedings at our annual conference in September. So we want to make sure that our membership, as well as, just the general specialty of healthcare value analysis, can really get a glimpse into what that event was like. And so we're capturing the different perspectives and quotes as we speak right now. The next process is to mold this in and some of those outputs into our 5-year strategic plan. We're very aggressively working towards those goals. And, we review that at every single board meeting, which has been a big change. That was something Karen and I felt very passionate about, is you need to start every board conversation with our strategy. Where are we? Where are we going? Are we on track? Are we off track? So that those conversations can dictate where we go. There may be things that come up that are way outside of the scope, and we don't want to have scope creep. We want to make sure that we can be strategically effective in our goals and directions. And so we'll sort of mold that in. But I would say the next 24 months for our association, based on just this meeting alone, I have about 32 pages of notes. That tells you how many different conversational points were flowing. And again, our goal is to make sure that they all are incorporated as part of this, as Karen likes to call it, the tapestry. That's really one of her Karenisms, if you will, that I just really adore, because the tapestry brings together all of the different stakeholders to fight one singular purpose, which is advancing patient care, safety, and reducing cost.
Karen, what's one takeaway that you have from the Future Summit?
The one takeaway that I have is really been reinforced throughout my value analysis journey is I love analogies. And this is kind of the analogy that I thought about that day. Value analysis is something that's going on in the background. And I relate it to a referee in a football game. And when the football game's going well, the calls don't have any question. Nobody even really notices the referee. But if there's a bad call or somebody gets thrown out, then everybody notices the referee, and the referee becomes the point of importance. And I think value analysis, what this Future Summit gave us, is a line of sight to have that tremendous foundation for value analysis so that it's working strongly in the background to support the delivery of care. And I talk about the lens of all of the providers and especially the industry partners. There I use the analogy of my youngest granddaughter is 5. She loves sweet tea. We're from the South. She loves sweet tea. So we went out to eat and Emily got her sweet tea and the waitress brought it in an adult glass. But the legs of the table were not the same length. And so what do you think happened with that glass of sweet tea before too long? She's wiggling the table and the sweet tea spilled all over the table. I liken that to if we don't have the perspective of the industry partners, if we don't have the perspective of other organizations, if we don't have the perspective of regulatory, then the legs of our table can be out of line. And before you know it, you've got a table that's covered in sticky sweet tea. And I want the legs of our table and the strings in our tapestry to be the same length and strong enough to support our industry.
Man, I love that, because what you're saying is all the voices are really important to create a balanced perspective and also maybe an accurate perspective about the future and where we need to go. Well, let's turn to something different. Hudson, you have a really active and proactive board, and you said something really interesting during the prep, which is that they're really involved in the recruiting of members. And you said that they're really active on social. So talk to us about what this involvement looks like. How does your board help you with recruitment and getting the word out about AHVAP?
Karen, as our board president, also serves as what I call the CRO, the Chief Recruitment Officer. She's single-handedly recruited more members than anybody else on the board, which I think is a testament to the belief in the association and the power of the resources. But the other thing we've tried to do strategically is to make it easy to be a board member. Life and healthcare in particular is quite hard. For example, not all of our board members are really savvy on social media. So we provide toolkits, we provide graphics, we provide ready-to-go text and verbiage that can be posted. And that's really helpful because it sort of meets that board member where they are. It allows them to very quickly in their busy day post something that certainly helps the association and the specialty, but also gets it out within their network.
Ah,
Because we find that grassroots approach from each of our board members, because they all come from a different perspective. Like Karen has a peri-anesthesia background. We have people with OR backgrounds. We have someone on our board that comes from a non-clinical supply chain that just brings a whole different lens. And so every one of them has something unique to offer. And so when they then share that within their network, that really brings a lot of value and recognition to the specialty. And so I think that's probably a big part of our strategy is make it easy to be successful and also show them the data. So every month we do report on the social media performance, and we don't just report our own. We actually compare it to other benchmark organizations in our space so that we can really get a side-by-side comparison, because that's important. We don't want to just be parallel. We want to actually be world-class in what we do. And so that's important. And Karen has really shepherded that from the board perspective.
well, I want to make sure I understand this. So every organization wants to be outward facing, and they all want to be on social, and they want to, be out there with emails, et cetera. And the problem with the social networks, LinkedIn, for example, is that the algorithms are against you. If you post from an organization page, the algorithms are against you. They want you to do sponsored posts. So what you're saying is that your board and maybe your committee leaders are actually posting on social on behalf of AHVAP, and you're providing them with the assets to do that.
That's correct. And I think a very timely example that we're going through right now is our annual conference is coming up in September. And so we have a very actively engaged annual conference committee. As a matter of fact, one of them actually said, well, I've run out of your social media posts. Can you send me more?
Oh my God.
So she's done so many. She's actually asked for additional posts because she wants to post fresh content. Well, yes, that's work for my team, but that is an amazing request. I love that request because that means that information is getting shared within individual networks. And to your point, I think we find just so much tremendous value. And if Karen shares it with her network, or I share it with my network, or BJ, one of our other board members, shares it with his, that just brings it to life a little bit differently, because then there's that personal testament from that individual that's not just coming from a blanket organization. And that makes the more personal connection. I think if there's one thing that's unique about AHVAP is we will treat you as part of a family. You will not be a member. You will not be a number. You will not be a statistic. You will be truly a part of our family. And when one member of our family hurts, we all hurt, and we all rise to the occasion to support that family member. We work very hard to make sure that, especially as we grow larger and larger, that we don't lose that sentimental feeling, because healthcare desperately needs that supportive infrastructure. And healthcare value analysis is really the backbone of delivering high quality care. And so this provides us that unique opportunity to deliver for that.
Karen, as president of the board, do you have the expectation of the board members that they will be posting on social and supporting the organization that way?
Yes, I do. And I actually practice that. One of the reasons, and I've shared this with the board, is somebody said to me, because of the positive energy that they saw from the social media posts, is I got to find out about this AHVAP. I want to be a part of it because I can see and sense through the social media the positive energy that's in the group, that's in the organization, and it's having the impact on the external organization. So I've had many people say, because of what they've seen on LinkedIn and other social medias, how do I get connected to that positive energy?
Wow.
Because aren't we all looking for positive in a negative world?
Absolutely. And we want to be connected in a positive way.
Yes. So I think that that's part of it. And you know the quote that says, people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. I think that's the unwritten mantra of AHVAP. We want our members to know how much we care about them from a professional perspective, from a personal perspective as much as possible, and from an organizational perspective, because through that knowing how much we care, we will all together make value analysis, healthcare delivery, the opportunity to receive excellent healthcare in the future a reality.
Wow. Hudson, you have an amazing partnership with your amazing president of the board in Karen. How do you make sure, actually, this is a question for both of you, how do you make sure that this continues? Because you have 2-year terms. And I've had clients and guests on the podcast who say, oh my God, we never know what we're going to get when the next board chair comes in. But that shouldn't be happening, right? Because you should be supporting the strategic plan and there shouldn't be PTSD over a new board chair. So how do you continue this? How do you make sure that the next generation has this fantastic relationship with the staff?
I think first and foremost is that the constant, right, is the staff executive. That's the person that's not going anywhere. They're going to be there to support that transition. So as, for example, Karen has a very unique leadership style that I try to support. One of the things that she is very particular about is she wants to make sure she meets her obligations. And so we frequently talk to ensure that everything is on her calendar, that if she has a conflict, we work through that, because that is really important to her. Our upcoming president-elect may have a different personality style. And so while the organization, the mission, the 5-year strategic plan will all be the same and we'll continue to move that momentum forward, I think part of my role is to make sure that each individual leader's personality style is as best supported as possible. The nice thing is that we've learned a lot over the last 3 years together since I've been engaged with AHVAP, and we've gone through a lot of organizational change. One of those really positive changes in terms of succession planning is that, for example, right now, Karen is mentoring our upcoming president-elect. Karen had a past president and does on the board now. And so there's a lot of succession planning and sort of institutional knowledge that can be transferred so that it really is much more seamless. I think the other piece, too, is the orientation that we provide to our board members. So Karen sort of sets the expectation as our board president of, here's what you're required to do as board members. But on my team, we sort of provide them the 3 legal duties that they have as board members. We go through conflict of interest. We go through all the different orientation that's necessary to set them up for success. And that provides a lot of consistency along with things like staggered terms so that we've always got good backup plans in case the worst possible scenario happens. But I think that that's really a critical element, is to have leaders right now. So almost every major call that Karen and I have, our president-elect is a part of that. And really for that training perspective to make sure that before it's her responsibility, right now she has the opportunity to sort of observe. And the Future Summit, for example, she came to the Future Summit so that she could observe that and be a part of it, but also be ready to lead it when that becomes her term. And so we're always trying to make sure we've got developmental opportunities where Karen and I, as the current staff executive and the current president, can support that next generation of leadership, because that's critically important for that relationship.
And Karen, I think you're scheduled to attend an ASAE meeting with Hudson?
Yes, I believe I am.
So what's that experience going to be like, attending an ASAE meeting together? That sounds like that's going to be very formative.
Oh, I'm sure it'll be amazing. I'm a consummate student of organizational leadership, of just leadership and professional growth and development in general. The thing that I would say about the people, we all have a different style. I'm from the South. I wish I didn't have a Southern accent, but I know I do. And the thing that I want to convey to the board is the people that come behind me, they don't have to be like me. We all have a gift. We all have a perspective. And it's through that tapestry that we are all stronger. So I think the first thing, and we've had conversations about this, is the next person's not going to be like me. They're going to be better than me. And that will be a real joy for me, for them to be better than me, because we're constantly working to move it forward, to make our industry sustainable and to make it repeatable so that our patients can get what they need in the time that they need it. It's kind of like the 5 rights from a nursing perspective. When you think about it from that perspective, it puts a whole different lens on it. And so I think that from a leadership perspective, that's what I'm looking for. And I believe that we're all working towards that common goal. Because that other quote that I've used lately this week, if you don't know where you're going, any road will take you there.
Right.
And I think our Future Summit, our strategic plan, all the things help us know where we're going. We turn on the navigation in our car so we know where we're going. Well, our Future Summit was our navigation. Our strategic plan is our navigation so that we know where we're headed.
Listeners of this podcast, this is what leadership looks like. This amazing partnership between the chief staff executive and the president of the board, and it sounds like a great partnership and a great friendship. I want to thank you for being on the podcast today, for sharing everything that you did. And Hudson, I'm going to have you back in the future because I know you're going to be doing amazing things that my listeners are going to want to hear about.
It's our pleasure. And thanks so much for extending the invitation for Karen and I to join you.
It was a real privilege, Joanna, to join, and I look forward to listening to it. I listened to the podcast that you did with Hudson earlier 3 times in one day. I just put it on repeat on my phone so that I could continuously listen to it because there were so many nuggets in there that I just found so refreshing. So thank you for the opportunity.
Thanks for listening to Associations Thrive. We're so glad to have you here. You know, my personal mission and the mission of my company, Matrix Group International, is to help associations and nonprofits increase membership, generate revenue, and thrive in the digital space. I want to hear stories of how your organization is thriving in today's challenging landscape. Please apply to be on my show by going to podcast.matrixgroup.net. By the way, do you need help with a digital initiative? Maybe it's a website redesign, a new membership database, or a hybrid meeting that you're planning. I'd love to connect with you. Please visit the Matrix Group website at matrixgroup.net. Thanks again for listening to this week's episode of Associations Thrive. Don't forget to subscribe to the show, leave a 5-star rating, post a comment, and share it with your colleagues and friends. Bye!